guys, so today we're going to talk about coaching agreement, or in simple terms, contracting. Well, one of the key essential elements in the coaching process is in the ability for us as coaches to contract our clients, to define the parameters of the coaching process, and also help the client to figure out where they want to be. So every single session, there will be this thing called the coaching agreement or the contracting. Now, the coaching agreement comes in two forms. One is what we call the formative, and the other is what we call the sessional. And understanding this delineation, it's really important for us as coaches to really dive deeper in the coaching process. Now, too often coaches are kind of like stuck. They're not sure whether this is the right process, that's the right process. But in fact, it's something really, really simple, but it's going to be something really powerful for all of us out there to really understand. So tonight, I'm going to give us a breakdown into one very simple competency known as competency number 3, which is on the coaching agreement. And I want to break down one element known as identification and reconfirmation of the coaching agreement. And hopefully in this whole process gives you some ideas onto how do we actually establish those coaching agreements. And I want to welcome you to come and join us in our mentoring process, in our classes, to really dive in deeper in all these different elements. So let's begin this. So let's take a look at the definition for the coaching agreement. It says here that partners with client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, processes, plans, and goals. Establishes agreements for the overall coaching engagement as well as for those in each session. Now, in this part, we're going to focus on one key element known as partners with clients and to identify or reconfirm what they want to accomplish in the session. So what does it mean to partner with the client? Well, to co-create the outcome for the session that truly matters to the client. And that's something really important for us to consider, right? So in a coaching session, there may be multiple sessions and overarching sessional outcomes, and it's important to delineate the overarching versus the individual sessions. And there's a difference between identification or reconfirmation from the previous sessions. I'm going to explain that in just a while. So let's give some example first. So what is an example of an overarching outcome? Well, an overarching outcome could be to lose weight and get the desired physique that I want. The session outcome is, for example, I may have 3 sessions on that. Session number 1, I can talk about clarity around weight loss versus learning or versus laying down. Session number 2, maybe we're going to talk about workout steps to healthy eating. Session number 3, maybe we talk about design actions on exercise plan that is progressive. Now again, this sessional outcome can be defined by the client or it can be defined in the coaching process with the client as we are journeying through the whole process. So now there you have the overarching, which is the one that's the broader scope that may span across multiple sessions, and the individual single sessions. So when we come together in the coaching agreement, when we come together in the coaching process, when we're contracting the client in that session, it's all about in that one session. So we're looking at the sessions individually, but we are also weaving in across all the various sessions that are there. So I give you an example. So suppose we use the same one about losing weight, right? So that's the overarching. And in that session, perhaps the client wants to talk about clarity around weight loss. So in that session, I want to kind of define and work with the client, partner with the client to define what exactly they want out of the session. Now, not what I want, but what the client wants. So too often, many coaches say, okay, client, thanks for coming in. This is what we're going to work on. We're going to work on A, B, C, D. So it's coming from the coach perspective. The coach is dictating what the client wants to achieve. No, not quite. In the coaching process, it's not really about the coach. It's about the client. So we're going to spend some time to unravel with the client what they truly want to get out of the session. So it's less about what I want, but it's more about what the client wants of the session. Now remember, I talk about identification and reconfirmation. These are two very distinct elements. Identification happens in the coaching process, and say for example the client comes into you or into the session and just wondering, coach, should I work on this, should I work on that? I'm kind of confused. I got so many different elements that I really want to work on, and every element seems to be really exciting that I really want to talk about, but I'm not quite sure. So those are key attributes, those are key elements that we're going to work on, identifying what is it that the client wants out of the session. So say for example, I have a time frame of 30 minutes or 60 minutes. So the outcome or the coaching agreement must be able to be achieved within that session. If the outcome is just way too huge, way too big, way too broad, then we are not able to scope down and get specifics in terms of helping the client to move forward. Say for example, the client wants to discover their life purpose or life dream. So would that be possible in a 30-minute call? Well, it's quite a broad topic, so you might want to kind of narrow it down. So that's the identification process. Now, the reconfirmation happens especially in the process when you have multiple sessions with the client. And say, for example, in the previous session, you spoke with the client says, okay, coach, in the next session, let's talk about how I have been since the last time I've met, and let's talk about designing some action steps that I can take forward. Okay, so that was the last session. So this session, as you begin the session, you can ask the clients, hey, last session we spoke about wanting to focus on this, on that matter in this session. So I'm wondering, is that still the focus for today? So that's the idea of reconfirmation, confirming whether that's the scope that the client wants to focus on today. So the idea of identification and reconfirmation are very important elements in establishing the coaching agreement. Now, thereafter, it's about maintaining that agreement throughout the coaching process and only changing it according to where the client wants to bring us to. So, for example, along the way, as the client unravels and we explore more about what the client really wants, and the client says, hey, you know what? I think I really want this. And we check back with the client to reconfirm and see, is that the direction the client wants to go? If that's the case, then we go where the client wants to be. So directions and all those different elements are important. They're all client-led. Traditionally, many times coaches are, trying to say, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. Then the responsibility lies on the coach. But remember, the coaching process is about helping the client to gain a deeper sense of self, helping the client to be more connected, more accountable towards the progress that they want to achieve. It's less about the coach, right? Because the coach can do so much in that process, but it's more about the client. And my focus is really with the client. So in our practice session, this is what I want you guys to do. As you're listening to the client, what the client really wants, are you able to explore with them with no strings attached, with a sense of no biases, no judgment, just listening to the client and exploring with them what is it that they really want to talk about in the session. Scope it down, right? And you want to make sure that it's doable in the session, and then explore further with the client. And along the way, if there's a change, or maybe there's a pivot shift in the client's world, that's when you kind of take a next step forward and try different interventions in the process. Okay, so there you have it. Identification and reconfirmation in the coaching agreement. One small tip for you as you prepare for your coaching sessions. And I hope this tip really helps you and helps prepare you. So if you like this video that you see, give us a thumbs up, share this with a friend, and let me know what more videos you would like to hear, and share me some comments below in terms of what case studies and experiences that you have. And this is part of our mentor coaching success journey that we run all year round for coaches at the ACC, PCC, MCC level at Coaching Changes Lives. So if you like what you hear, I look forward to seeing you in one of our sessions really soon.